Choose a job you love, and you will never have to work a day in your life. You have heard this sentence 1,000 times. You have seen it printed on inspirational posters. You have been fed this exact phrase by career counselors, life coaches, and the entire modern self-help industrial complex. It is presented to you as the ultimate formula for a successful, fulfilled existence. You look at your life right now. You bounce from job to job, from project to project, from one fleeting obsession to the next. The absolute moment a task becomes difficult, the moment the tedious, unglamorous reality of the work sets in, you quit. You tell yourself, this just isn't my true passion. You are waiting for a divine lightning bolt of inspiration to strike your brain and make the grueling labor feel effortless. You are waiting for the universe to hand you a grand, pre-packaged purpose wrapped in endless, effortless joy. Let me tell you a brutal, unforgiving truth. That quote is a lie. It is the most toxic, paralyzing, and financially devastating piece of advice ever engineered in the 21st century. If you are waiting for your work to feel like play before you commit to it, you are volunteering for a life of permanent mediocrity. You are signing your own death warrant in the free market. This is core wisdom. If you are ready to burn the comforting lies of the modern world, accept the heavy, magnificent burden of discipline, and walk the path of the sovereign, you are in the right place. Subscribe. We build the fortress together. Let us perform a ruthless, unsympathetic dissection of your favorite excuse. We must step out of the illusion of endless entertainment and examine the dopamine mirage. Modern society has conditioned you to worship your own feelings. It has taught you that if an endeavor does not bring you immediate emotional gratification, it is somehow out of alignment with your soul. But modern psychology and neuroscience have a very clinical, cold understanding of what you romantically call passion. When you start a new project, a new business venture, or a new hobby, your brain releases a massive, intoxicating surge of dopamine. It is the neurochemical of novelty. Everything feels vibrant and exciting. The possibilities seem infinite. You wake up at 5 in the morning without an alarm clock. You feel completely energized, and you proudly declare to the world that you have finally found your true calling. You think you have discovered your destiny. You have not discovered your destiny. You have simply taken a biological narcotic, and like all narcotics, the high is strictly temporary. What happens next? The timeline is always the exact same. Day 1 is euphoria. Day 30 is reality. The novelty inevitably wears off. The dopamine crashes. The honeymoon phase violently ends. And suddenly, you are face to face with the brutal, uncompromising reality of the grind. You realize that building a successful business is not just designing a cool logo and calling yourself a CEO. It is making 100 cold calls and getting aggressively rejected 99 times. You realize that becoming a master programmer is not just typing elegant lines of code in a coffee shop. It is staring at a broken, chaotic algorithm for 14 hours straight until your eyes bleed and your brain goes numb. You realize that getting in elite physical shape is not a fun montage with background music. It is picking up heavy iron, pushing your muscles to the point of absolute failure, and tasting blood in the back of your throat. This is the critical juncture. This is the exact moment where the biological sorting mechanism of the universe activates to separate the conquerors from the victims. When the friction hits, when the work stops being fun and starts feeling like heavy, agonizing, tedious labor, the weak man panics. He interprets this lack of dopamine as a cosmic sign. He says to himself, "I am bored. I am stressed. I am not having fun anymore. Therefore, this must not be my true passion. I need to pivot. I need to find something else that makes my soul come alive." And so, he quits. He drops the heavy iron. He closes the laptop. He packs his bags and moves on to the next shiny object, chasing the next cheap dopamine spike, repeating the exact same cycle of euphoric beginnings and pathetic, cowardly endings for the rest of his natural life. He becomes a serial starter and a professional quitter. You must understand that you are not searching for a purpose. You are searching for entertainment. You have fundamentally confused the execution of power with the consumption of pleasure. You expect the free market to operate like a theme park, designed exclusively to keep you stimulated, comfortable, and happy. The universe is not an amusement park. The universe is a cold, mechanical, blood-soaked forge. It does not care if you are having fun. It does not care if you feel inspired. It only cares if you are producing undeniable physical utility. Let us introduce the metaphor of the tourist. The weak man navigates his career and his life exactly like a tourist on vacation. A tourist only stays in a city as long as the weather is beautiful, the food is delicious, and the scenery is highly entertaining. The absolute second that a storm rolls in, the second the hotel loses power, or the second the environment becomes slightly uncomfortable, the tourist panics, grabs his suitcase, and immediately books a flight to the next sunny destination. He has no roots. He has no loyalty to the territory. He is a transient, fragile consumer of good vibes. If you build your entire life around the philosophy of following your passion, you are permanently relegating yourself to the status of a psychological tourist. You will never build a fortress, because building a fortress is not a passionate endeavor. It requires you to stand in the freezing rain, covered in thick mud, stacking heavy stones for years, long after the initial excitement has completely evaporated. A tourist does not build castles. A tourist just takes pictures of them and moves on. Passion is an emotion, and emotions are inherently volatile, fragile, and entirely unreliable. They fluctuate based on what you ate for breakfast, how much sleep you got, and the weather outside. Building an empire on the foundation of an emotion is like building a skyscraper on a foundation of loose, shifting sand. The moment the wind changes direction, the moment your mood dips, the entire massive structure violently collapses into dust. The sovereign man does not consult his feelings before he executes. He does not wake up in the morning, check his internal emotional thermometer, and ask himself, "Do I feel passionate about doing the work today?" That is the question of a peasant. That is the question of a slave who is entirely controlled by his biology. The sovereign man relies on a completely different, infinitely more terrifying fuel source. He relies on cold, dark, unyielding discipline. He understands that the most valuable things in this world, wealth, true power, undeniable physical competence, and elite status, are guarded by a massive, towering wall of agonizing boredom and brutal friction. The universe intentionally makes the path difficult to filter out the tourists. The boredom, the pain, and the repetition are the exact tolls you must pay to enter the kingdom of the elite. When the work becomes mind-numbingly boring, the sovereign man does not see it as a sign to quit. He sees it as a test of his sovereignty. He locks his jaw, he manually shuts down his emotional processing center, and he continues to swing the heavy iron hammer. We must now expose the most fundamental error in your logic. We must examine the grand illusion of the order of operations. We must look at the cart before the horse. The entire modern self-help industry tells you to find your passion first and then build a career around it. This is a catastrophic inversion of reality. It is exactly like expecting a fireplace to give you intense, comforting heat before you have chopped the wood, bled from the splinters, and struck the flint. Look at the absolute titans of industry. Look at the apex predators of the free market. Look at the men who have built massive, undeniable empires. Do you honestly believe they started with a burning, poetic passion for supply chain logistics? Do you think they were born with a magical, innate love for corporate tax law, data analytics, or cold calling strangers? Absolutely not. They started with a minor curiosity, or more often, a desperate, violent biological need to survive, escape poverty, and acquire power. They did not sit in a circle and wait to feel passionate. They picked a high-value skill, and they violently forced themselves to learn it. When you start a new endeavor, you enter the phase of extreme incompetence. This is the exact phase where you always quit. When you attempt a new skill, you are pathetic at it. You are slow, you are highly inefficient, you make catastrophic mistakes, and you look utterly foolish to everyone around you. Your ego takes a massive, unrelenting beating. And because you are the fragile product of a coddled society, you misdiagnose this bruised ego. You mistakenly label your own incompetence as a lack of passion. You say, "This isn't for me. I don't feel the spark. This must not be my true calling." Let me translate that for you. You did not lose your passion. You lost your tolerance for looking stupid. You could not handle the agonizing psychological gap between your grand, arrogant vision of yourself and your actual physical inability to execute. You quit because sucking at something hurts your feelings. But what happens to the man who does not quit? What happens to the man who stays in the mud? He endures the incompetence. He absorbs the humiliation. He swings the hammer 10,000 times, missing the nail over and over again, until his hands are permanently scarred. And slowly, the brutal mechanics of reality begin to change. He builds competence. Suddenly, he is no longer the worst in the room. He becomes proficient. The work requires less cognitive load. Then, he becomes dangerous. Then, he becomes absolutely undeniable. He starts closing the massive deals. He starts building the flawless systems. He starts violently dominating his competitors and extracting serious, life-changing capital from the market. And right there, in the exact moment of absolute domination, a strange, beautiful psychological phenomenon occurs. He suddenly loves what he does. He develops a profound, undeniable, burning passion for his work. Here is the ultimate secret the weak will never understand. Passion is not a prerequisite for the work. Passion is a byproduct of absolute, terrifying mastery. You do not love the work itself. You love the power the work gives you. You love the feeling of being undeniably competent. You love the leverage. You love the deep, primal satisfaction of walking into an arena and knowing you are the most lethal entity in the room. Human beings are biologically hardwired to enjoy doing the things they are exceptionally good at, and they are hardwired to despise doing the things they are terrible at. You will never, ever feel passionate about a game you are losing. You only feel passion when you start crushing the opposition. Let us return to the forge. Let us examine the true nature of the blacksmith. The blacksmith stands in a dark, claustrophobic room. The heat of the furnace is suffocating. The air is thick with toxic smoke and ash. His hands are covered in thick, heavy calluses and severe, permanent burns. His muscles scream in absolute agony from swinging a 30-pound iron hammer for 12 hours a day, every single day. Does the blacksmith love the heat? Does he have a poetic passion for inhaling smoke? Does he wake up giddy with excitement to burn his forearms on molten steel? Absolutely not. If you asked him if he was following his passion, he would look at you like you were a lunatic. He stays in the forge because he is obsessed with the outcome. He is obsessed with the sheer mechanical perfection of the sword he is forging. He is addicted to the mastery of his craft. He knows that when the fire cools, when the deafening grinding stops, he will hold in his hands an instrument of absolute, terrifying power that no other man in the village has the discipline to create. His passion is not for the agonizing process. His passion is for the supremacy of his competence. He loves the fact that he is the master of the iron. You are currently trying to find a forge that does not have fire. You are looking for a hammer that is perfectly light, ergonomically designed, and never causes calluses. You are frantically searching for an arena where you can win the championship without ever sweating, bleeding, or feeling bored. It does not exist. The dream job is the ultimate mirage. Every single profession on the face of the earth, no matter how glamorous, artistic, or exciting it looks from the outside, is built on a heavy, solid foundation of mind-numbing, repetitive, unglamorous friction. The famous rock star spends 5% of his life on stage receiving the applause, and 95% of his life sitting in a cramped, miserable tour bus, arguing with promoters, and tuning a guitar in an empty, echoing room. The billionaire CEO does not spend his day having brilliant epiphanies on a yacht. He spends 90% of his life reading dry, agonizingly boring legal contracts and managing the endless, chaotic problems of incompetent employees. If you demand that every single hour of your workday be filled with deep, spiritual fulfillment and explosive joy, you will be permanently unemployed. You will be a permanent child, wandering the earth with a backpack, complaining that the cold, mechanical reality of the free market refuses to cater to your emotional needs. You must stop waiting to fall in love with a concept, and you must start falling in love with the grind of mastery. Let us fully embrace the Stoic grind. We must transition from the fragile psychology of the consumer to the cold, mechanical reality of the producer. The Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius did not wake up in his freezing tent on the Germanic frontier, look out at the brutal, bloody battlefield, and ask his generals, "Does fighting these barbarian hordes align with my highest passion today? Does this spark joy in my soul?" He woke up, he put on his heavy iron armor, and he commanded the legions because it was his absolute duty, because the empire required it. He operated on a frequency of absolute necessity, entirely detached from emotional preference. He did not do what he loved, he did what was required to maintain his sovereignty. You must adopt this exact freezing frequency. When you remove passion as a prerequisite for action, you instantly become an unstoppable, terrifying force of nature. Think about your competitors in the free market. The market is saturated with weak, emotionally fragile men who are entirely dependent on their dopamine levels. They can only sprint when the sun is shining, when the music is loud, and when they feel inspired. The absolute moment the sky turns gray, the moment the work becomes tedious, boring, and agonizing, they pack up their bags and go home. If you can train your mind to execute with brutal, robotic consistency, completely independent of how you feel, you will slaughter them. You will walk right past them while they are sitting on the side of the road, waiting for a spark of inspiration that is never going to arrive. The sovereign man weaponizes his apathy. He looks at a mind-numbingly boring spreadsheet. He looks at a grueling database. He looks at a terrifying list of cold calls, and he feels absolutely nothing. No excitement, no fear, no passion. Just cold, calculating, relentless execution. You must fundamentally restructure your vocabulary. Eradicate the word passion from your mind. It is a word for children. Replace it with the word leverage. When you evaluate a potential business, a new skill, or a career path, stop asking the pathetic question, "Will I love doing this every single day?" Start asking the cold, mechanical questions of an apex predator. Is this skill incredibly difficult to acquire? Does the free market place a massive financial premium on it? Will mastering this specific mechanism give me undeniable leverage over my peers? If the answer is yes, you do not need to love it. You just need to conquer it. You might ask, but if I don't have passion, what will fuel me through the darkest, hardest days? What will keep me going when I want to quit? If you require an emotional fuel source, do not use love. Love is too fragile, too fickle, and too soft for the trenches of the free market. Use disgust. Use a deep, burning, visceral disgust for mediocrity. Look at the average man. Look at his profound lack of freedom. Look at his constant, suffocating financial anxiety. Look at the way he is completely at the mercy of his employer, his landlord, his government, and his environment. Let the absolute existential terror of becoming that man be the roaring fire in your furnace. You do not need to be passionate about coding, selling, or building supply chain logistics, but you must be violently, aggressively passionate about not being a victim. You must be passionate about your own sovereignty. You must be passionate about having the physical and financial power to say no to anyone on earth. That kind of terrifying power is not found in a hobby. It is not found in a yoga retreat or a vision board. It is forged strictly in the grueling, repetitive, unsexy grind of mastery. It is time for you to make a permanent, irreversible decision. You can continue to live your life as a psychological tourist. You can spend the next 10 years jumping from one shiny object to the next, quitting the moment the friction burns your fingers. You can arrive at the end of your life with a resume full of half-finished projects, a bank account full of excuses, and a mouth full of complaints. You can die telling everyone at the bar about all the great passions you almost pursued. Or you can lock the door. You can pick one high-value, difficult, uncomfortable skill. You can accept the brutal reality that for the next 3 years, you will not have fun. You will not feel inspired. You will be a slave to the anvil. You will endure the crushing incompetence. You will absorb the public humiliation, and you will swing the heavy iron hammer until your hands bleed and your muscles tear. And then, one day, you will wake up. You will look at your scarred hands, and you will realize you are no longer a slave. You are the master. You hold the leverage. You command the market. You dictate the terms of your own existence. And you will realize that the deep, unbreakable, masculine pride of your own extreme competence is 1,000,000 times more intoxicating than the cheap, fleeting thrill of any passion you ever chased. Tonight, the endless, pathetic search for the perfect job comes to an end. Stop waiting for a divine spark. Stop demanding that the universe entertain you. The universe owes you absolutely nothing, and it will not sing you a lullaby while you work. Kill the tourist. Embrace the blacksmith. Step into the suffocating heat of the forge, accept the burns, and do not step out until you have fashioned yourself into a weapon of absolute, undeniable utility. This is core wisdom. If you are ready to drop the delusion of passion, burn the rulebook of the week, and swing the heavy iron hammer of discipline, subscribe. Leave the herd behind.